Professor Williams had warned them a safety consultant would be visiting campus that week, but when Officers Mitchell and Davis saw the black man taking notes near the administration building, they never connected the dots.
Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and a comment before we start to learn more about what happened.
Dr. Marcus Thompson stepped out of his rental car and surveyed the sprawling university campus. 23 years of evaluating campus security systems had taught him to notice everything. The placement of emergency call boxes, the lighting gaps between buildings, the blind spots where students could be vulnerable. He pulled his tablet from his briefcase and started making notes. Building 47, the administration complex, had several concerning security vulnerabilities. The side entrance was poorly lit. The surveillance camera was positioned too high to capture facial details, and the emergency phone was obstructed by overgrown landscaping. Dr. Thompson was exactly where he was supposed to be, doing exactly what the university had hired him to do. But to anyone watching, he just looked like a middle-aged black man in khakis and a polo shirt, walking around campus with a tablet, taking notes about building layouts. The call came in at 2:17 p.m. Campus dispatch. We have a report of suspicious activity near the administration building. Male subject, approximately 45, taking photographs and making notes about building security. Officer Mitchell grabbed his radio. He and his partner Davis had been patrolling the North Campus when the call came through. We're 2 minutes out. Any description of the subject? Black male, medium build, khakis, and polo shirt. Anonymous caller said he was acting suspicious, checking out entrances and taking pictures of security cameras. Mitchell and Davis exchanged glances. Campus had been on edge lately. There'd been break-ins at 3 other universities in the state, and administration had been pushing them to be extra vigilant about anyone who didn't belong. Could be casing the place, Davis said, accelerating toward the administration building. Smart move coming during the day when everyone's busy. They found Dr. Thompson exactly where the caller had reported, standing near the side entrance of the administration building, tablet in hand, looking up at the security camera mounted above the doorway. Officer Mitchell approached first, his hand resting casually on his duty belt. "Excuse me, sir, can I ask what you're doing here?" Dr. Thompson looked up from his tablet where he'd been documenting the camera's poor positioning. "Good afternoon, officer. I'm conducting a security evaluation of the campus." "Security evaluation?" Davis stepped closer, his voice carrying that particular tone that suggested he didn't believe what he was hearing. "Are you a student here?" "No, I'm not a student." Dr. Thompson kept his voice calm and professional. He'd been through scenarios like this before, not often, but enough to know that staying composed was essential. "I'm Dr. Marcus Thompson. I'm here on contract with the university to evaluate campus safety protocols." Mitchell looked skeptical. "You got any ID to back that up?" Dr. Thompson reached slowly for his wallet, making sure both officers could see his hands. "Of course." He handed over his driver's license and business card. Mitchell glanced at the license, then at the business card. Thompson Security Consulting, Campus Safety Specialists. He looked back at Dr. Thompson with obvious doubt. "This says you're from Chicago. What's a Chicago consultant doing taking pictures of our buildings?" "I'm documenting security vulnerabilities as part of a comprehensive campus safety assessment. The university contracted my firm 3 months ago to evaluate your current protocols and make recommendations for improvements." Davis stepped forward. "If that's true, why doesn't campus security know about it?" "We weren't notified of any consultant coming to campus." This was the conversation Dr. Thompson had hoped to avoid. In his experience, campus police often felt threatened by outside security consultants, as if his presence implied they weren't doing their jobs properly, which unfortunately was sometimes exactly what his assessments revealed. "The notification should have gone through your chain of command," Doctor, Thompson explained. I believe Professor Williams in the administration office was supposed to coordinate with campus security about my visit. Professor Williams. Mitchell's expression didn't change. There's no Professor Williams in administration. Dr. Thompson felt a flicker of concern. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his emails. Dr. Sarah Williams, Associate Dean of Student Affairs. She's my primary contact for this assessment. Dean Williams, Davis corrected with obvious irritation. She's Dean Williams, not Professor Williams. And if she hired you, why are you sneaking around campus taking pictures instead of going through proper channels? The word sneaking hit Dr. Thompson like a slap. He'd been conducting campus security assessments for over 2 decades, working with universities across the country to improve student safety. He'd never been accused of sneaking before. I'm not sneaking, officer. I'm conducting a professional security evaluation in broad daylight during normal business hours, exactly as outlined in my contract with the university. Mitchell stepped closer. Well, we're going to need to verify that contract, and we're going to need you to stop whatever you're doing until we can confirm you have permission to be here. I understand your caution, Doctor, Thompson said, keeping his voice level. But I do have permission. I have documentation in my car if you'd like to see it. What kind of documentation? Davis asked. The signed contract with the university, my security clearance credentials, and reference letters from 23 other universities where I've conducted similar assessments. Mitchell looked unimpressed. Anyone can fake paperwork. What we need is verification from someone in authority. Dr. Thompson felt his patience beginning to fray. Then call Dean Williams. She can confirm my identity and the purpose of my visit. We'll do that, Davis said. But first, we need you to step away from the building and stop taking pictures. I'm not taking pictures. I'm making notes on my tablet about security vulnerabilities, which is exactly what I'm being paid to do. Mitchell's hand moved to his handcuffs. Sir, you're going to comply with our instructions right now. Step away from the building and put the tablet down. When Dr. Thompson didn't immediately move, Mitchell stepped closer, his voice getting harder. Did you hear me? I said put it down now. This was escalating beyond reason, and Dr. Thompson knew it. He'd seen this before. Officers who felt their authority was being challenged, who couldn't back down once they'd committed to a course of action. Officers, I'm going to reach into my briefcase and show you my contract with the university. This will clear up any confusion about why I'm here. Don't reach for anything, Mitchell said sharply. Keep your hands where we can see them. The absurdity of the situation was breathtaking. Dr. Thompson was standing on a public university campus in broad daylight with proper credentials and a signed contract, being treated like a criminal for doing the job he'd been hired to do. This is ridiculous, he said quietly. What's ridiculous, Davis shot back, is someone claiming to be a security consultant who can't follow simple instructions from law enforcement. Dr. Thompson took a deep breath. I am following instructions. I'm complying with your requests, but I'm also trying to show you documentation that will confirm I have every right to be here. We'll determine whether you have the right to be here, Mitchell said. Right now, you're acting suspicious. You don't have proper authorization, and you're being uncooperative. Uncooperative? Dr. Thompson had been polite, professional, and patient. He'd offered his credentials, explained his purpose, and suggested they contact his university liaison. If this was uncooperative, then cooperation was apparently defined as immediate submission without question. I'd like to call Dean Williams myself, Dr. Thompson said. She can clear this up in 30 seconds. No phone calls, Davis said. We'll handle the verification. Mitchell pulled out his radio. Campus dispatch. We need a contact number for Dean Sarah Williams in Student Affairs. We have a subject here claiming to be working for her." While they waited for the information, Dr. Thompson stood motionless, his hands visible, his demeanor calm. But inside, he was cataloging every violation of reasonable procedure, every assumption based on appearance rather than evidence, every escalation that could have been avoided with basic professional courtesy. The radio crackled back. "Dean Williams is in meetings all afternoon. Her assistant says she's not available until after 4. It was 2:45. Dr. Thompson had a campus to evaluate and a report due by Friday. He couldn't stand around for an hour and 15 minutes waiting for someone to confirm what his contract already documented. "Officers, I have the signed contract in my car. It clearly states the scope and timeline of my assessment. If you'd allow me to retrieve it—" "No," Mitchell interrupted. "You stay right where you are until we can verify your story." Story. As if his professional credentials and university contract were some elaborate fiction. Dr. Thompson made a decision. "I'm going to call Dean Williams's office myself. This has gone on long enough." He reached for his phone, moving slowly and deliberately. Mitchell stepped forward immediately. "I told you no phone calls. Put your hands back where I can see them." "Officer, I'm making a phone call to resolve this situation. I'm not committing a crime." "You're interfering with our investigation," Davis said, "and you're failing to comply with lawful orders." Lawful orders. Dr. Thompson had been stopped, questioned, and detained for doing his job on a campus where he had every legal right to be. He'd offered documentation, suggested verification procedures, and remained completely cooperative throughout the encounter. "What crime am I being investigated for?" he asked. Mitchell and Davis exchanged a glance. They hadn't actually articulated what law they thought he might be breaking. "Trespassing," Davis said finally. "Criminal trespass on university property. I have a signed contract with the university. I can't trespass on property where I've been explicitly invited to conduct business." "We don't know that you have a contract," Mitchell said. "All we know is what you're telling us." The circular logic was maddening. They wouldn't let him show them the contract, but they were detaining him for not having proof of the contract. Dr. Thompson pulled out his phone anyway. "I'm calling Dean Williams." Mitchell moved fast and aggressive, grabbing Dr. Thompson's wrist and twisting it behind his back. "You're under arrest for interfering with a police investigation and resisting lawful orders." The pain shot through Dr. Thompson's shoulder as Mitchell forced his arm higher than necessary. "You're hurting me," he said through gritted teeth. "Should have thought of that before you decided to be uncooperative," Mitchell snarled, yanking the handcuffs tight enough to cut off circulation. Davis grabbed Dr. Thompson's other arm, squeezing hard enough to leave bruises. "Quit struggling, or this gets worse for you." Dr. Thompson wasn't struggling. He was trying to maintain his balance as they roughly manhandled him toward the patrol car. But Davis shoved him hard against the side of the vehicle anyway. "Spread your legs, now!" Mitchell kicked at Dr. Thompson's ankles to force them apart, then began an unnecessarily rough pat-down that was more about humiliation than safety. "This is insane," he managed to say, as Mitchell pressed him harder against the car, his face pushed against the metal. "I'm a campus safety consultant. I was hired by your own university to be here." "That's what they all say, smartass," Davis muttered, grabbing Dr. Thompson's shoulder and spinning him around roughly before shoving him toward the open back door. "Maybe next time you'll think twice before playing games with campus security." Dr. Thompson stumbled, his balance thrown off by the handcuffs and the aggressive handling. Mitchell caught his arm, not to help, but to jerk him upright with unnecessary force. "Watch your step, Professor," Mitchell said mockingly, pushing Dr. Thompson's head down as he forced him into the back seat. The door slammed shut with finality. Dr. Thompson found himself sitting in the back of a campus police car, handcuffed, while students walked past on their way to afternoon classes. Some stared openly, others took pictures with their phones. By evening, this would be all over social media, the black man arrested near the administration building. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd been hired to identify security vulnerabilities on campus, and he'd just discovered the biggest one: a campus police force that treated legitimate visitors like criminals based on appearance rather than evidence. Mitchell got behind the wheel and started the engine. "We're taking you to the campus security office for processing. Dean Williams can sort this out when she gets out of her meetings." As they drove across campus, Dr. Thompson looked out the window at the buildings he'd been hired to assess. Emergency call boxes that needed repositioning, lighting systems that needed upgrading, surveillance cameras that needed better placement. All of it would have to wait while he sat in a holding cell because two officers couldn't imagine that a black man in khakis might actually be a professional consultant. At the campus security office, they processed him roughly. Mitchell kept the handcuffs on longer than necessary, and when he finally removed them, Dr. Thompson's wrists were red and swollen from the too tight restraints. "Rub some dirt on it," Davis said when Dr. Thompson winced at the marks. "Maybe next time you'll cooperate from the start." The desk sergeant looked Dr. Thompson up and down with obvious disdain. "Name: Dr. Marcus Thompson." "Sure you are, and I'm the Pope." "Occupation?" When Dr. Thompson said he was a security consultant, the sergeant laughed harshly. "Security consultant who gets arrested on campus? That's rich. You people will say anything." "You people." The phrase hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Dr. Thompson was placed in a small holding room with plastic chairs and fluorescent lighting. Through the window, he could see students walking to their next classes, completely unaware that the man hired to improve their campus safety was sitting in detention because he looked suspicious while doing his job. At 4:15 p.m., the door finally opened. Dean Sarah Williams walked in, her face a mixture of embarrassment and fury. "Dr. Thompson, I am so sorry. When I heard what happened—" She trailed off, shaking her head. "This is completely unacceptable." Behind her stood Officers Mitchell and Davis, looking considerably less confident than they had 2 hours earlier. "Dean Williams, Doctor," Thompson said, standing up. "I believe these officers wanted to verify my contract with the university." Dean Williams turned to face Mitchell and Davis. "Dr. Thompson is one of the most respected campus security consultants in the country. He's worked with Harvard, MIT, Stanford, and dozens of other universities. We hired him specifically because of his expertise in identifying security vulnerabilities." Mitchell looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, he was acting suspicious, taking pictures of buildings, making notes about security systems." "That's literally his job," Dean Williams said coldly. "He's conducting a comprehensive security assessment of our campus, the same assessment that I mentioned in my email to your department last week." Davis shifted nervously. "We never received any notification about a consultant." Dean Williams pulled out her phone and scrolled through her sent messages. "I sent it to Captain Rodriguez on March 15th. Campus Security Assessment, Dr. Marcus Thompson, Thompson Security Consulting, April 10th to 12th site visit." She looked up at both officers. "Did either of you read the departmental updates from last week?" The silence answered her question. "Dr. Thompson," Dean Williams continued, "has been documenting security vulnerabilities that need immediate attention. The poor lighting near Building 47, the obstructed emergency phones, the surveillance cameras that aren't properly positioned. All of this is critical for student safety." She turned back to Mitchell and Davis. "Instead of helping him identify problems that could put our students at risk, You arrested him for doing exactly what we hired him to do." Dr. Thompson watched the officers' faces change as they realized the magnitude of their mistake. They hadn't just arrested an innocent person. They'd arrested the expert hired to improve campus safety, while he was in the middle of identifying the very security weaknesses that could endanger students. "Dr. Thompson," Dean Williams said, "is there anything we can do to make this right?" He looked at Mitchell and Davis, both of whom seemed to be hoping the floor would open up and swallow them whole. "Actually," Dr. Thompson said, "there is something. This incident is going to be a case study in my final report, not as criticism of your officers, but as an example of how important communication is in campus security. When different departments don't coordinate properly, it creates exactly these kinds of situations." Dean Williams nodded. "That's very professional of you, considering what you've been through." Dr. Thompson looked at his watch. "I've lost 2 hours of assessment time, but I can still complete the evaluation if I work into the evening. The security vulnerabilities I identified this afternoon are still there, and they still need to be addressed." Mitchell finally found his voice. "Dr. Thompson, we apologize. We didn't know." "I understand, Doctor," Thompson said. "You were doing your job as you understood it. The problem isn't that you questioned me. The problem is that the communication breakdown made it impossible for you to verify my credentials efficiently." He gathered his belongings and headed for the door. "Dean Williams, I'll have my preliminary findings to you by tomorrow afternoon. And gentlemen," he nodded to Mitchell and Davis, "your response time to suspicious activity reports is excellent. Just make sure you're getting accurate information before you act on it." As Dr. Thompson walked back across campus toward his rental car, he reflected on the afternoon's events. He'd been hired to identify security vulnerabilities, and he'd discovered one that wasn't on his checklist. The vulnerability created when assumption overrides evidence, when appearance matters more than credentials, and when communication failures create the very dangers that security is supposed to prevent. His report would be comprehensive, professional, and thorough. It would identify lighting problems, surveillance gaps, and emergency communication issues. But it would also note that campus security's greatest vulnerability might be its willingness to see threats where none existed, while missing the real security consultant standing right in front of them. Dr. Thompson got back in his car and drove to the next building on his assessment list. There was still work to do, students to protect, and security systems to improve. The afternoon had been frustrating, but it had also provided valuable data about how campus security actually functioned under pressure. Sometimes the most important security assessments happened when you weren't expecting them.